Yeah, setting up. And yes, we are live. Yeah, we are live. Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know, like stream is working to be different today and it's acted too weird. So yeah,
Every day is a new day.
yeah, it's always you never know how it's going to be working, You cannot even guess what might go wrong. So yeah, welcome everyone, GM guys. Welcome to our YouTube AMA session today with Boris, CEO and co-founder of LiveArt. And we've got a lot of buckled up today, so get your cookies, get your coffee, tea, whatever, probably some wine or beer, as we talked on the AIM in Twitter space, I believe. Yeah. I know that a lot of people are right now like relaxing and chilling before the weekends, though. Get up, guys, and let's start for today. So, Boris, cutting story short, I'm giving you the mic. Please give us some short intro about you as the CEO and co-founder of LiveArt. Give us some alpha about LiveArt, your vision. Just get us some intro about LiveArt for the community who are not really in touch with LiveArt yet.
Sounds good. Well, it's great to be here. Nice day. And a little bit about me first. So I'm Boris Pevner. I'm the co-founder and CEO of LiveArt Holdings. I'm basically a builder. I've founded 5 different technology companies across different industries: art, freight transportation, cloud computing, gaming, and of course, crypto and Web3. So I've been in crypto since 2017. An interesting twist. I got into Web3 by the way of the art market. One of the companies that I had previously started, I sold to Christie's, which is the world's largest art business. So I spent a fair bit of time, in the epicenter of the art market, helping to drag it into the digital age, at first kicking and screaming, and then, now actually quite willingly. Saw the light. So 5 years ago, I saw how Web3 and crypto were beginning to transform the art and luxury marketplace, which is a huge market. It's a $10 trillion market. So it's really changing everything, how those assets are created, how they're sold, how the audiences for them are expanding, thanks to the growth of the crypto community. And that's basically how live art was born. So that was 3 years ago. It was born as a way to bring this enormous $10 trillion asset class to crypto audiences.
Thanks, Boris. And just wanted to ask, why did you choose this type of the assets? Like, art is interesting, we say, topic and interesting field, though the kind of high value assets, they're not too popular right now, isn't it?
Well, high value assets are always popular. Art is at all time high. Luxury watches have been setting some records. Rare wines and whiskeys have been setting all-time records, and the value classic cars are pretty high. So actually, as the world is getting, on average, wealthier, these kinds of assets are becoming more and more popular, but they're only accessible, well, to the wealthy, right? They're not accessible to the retail investors until now. And so now, with AI and blockchain technology, anybody can get access to these assets, which over time, they've done very well for wealthy people. They're some of the best performing asset classes in the world, by most metrics, above US equities and other comparables. So they're sort of like in the kind of crypto category of returns,
Mm.
many of them. So for the first time, it is actually now possible for retail investors to get access to these asset classes, which until now were only accessible to the select few.
Yeah, that's true. And like you're concentrating more on only like any specific type of the art, or it's kind of broad, let's say
Hmm.
thematic, so that any retail investor can come in and select I don't know, some sculptures, some art pieces, or something like that, like watches.
Yeah. We focus on what we call the blue chip sector, just like there are blue chip stocks or blue chip cryptos. Same thing here. Proven asset classes. The top artists, the top 20, top 50 artists in the world who have huge markets. Like say Andy Warhol has an $8 billion market. Just the amount of Andy Warhol paintings that are out there trading today. Other art, Picasso has multi-billion-dollar market and so on. Same thing, luxury watches, Rolex is a multi-billion-dollar market as well as other watch brands. Same thing for wines, for whiskey, for cars, right? So all of these markets, the kind of at the top of those markets is the blue chip sector, and that's the one that's been performing well historically. That's essentially like investable grade, institutional grade part of that those asset classes, and those are the ones that we're focusing on.
Awesome. Thanks. It's really interesting. And like let's I guess move to the first topic and talk about the ERT-Fi as the field in general and more in the broad perspective. So like that there are billions of dollars already within the like within the chain, within the sphere. Yeah, and what do you think from your perspective? What live art is doing to make sure that the project stands out of
Mhm.
the contributors, some like from the unique selling points, we can say from the stands out from the competitors, basically.
Yeah, great question. Well, what makes us unique is the two big things. The first one is that it's AI based. So AI, and I'll explain where we put that in, but it's really, the company started as an AI company 3 years ago. So we've been building AI tools for everything that we do, from pricing these assets to guiding customers toward the best performing assets and constructing best performing portfolios of these assets. But then on the other hand, the other part of the puzzle is RWA tokenization, which is only available on blockchain, which allows a cost-effective and very wide distribution of this asset class to, any retail investor anywhere. So those are the two big things that set us apart. I would say that kind of to double click on them, what makes the market interesting is that it's a huge market. It's a $10 trillion industry. It's a $10 trillion asset class, which is, one of the biggest asset classes out there. Certainly the biggest alternative asset class that exists. And it's been it's a very well performing one. So it's high value investment grade assets that again, up to recently have only been available to select few wealthy individuals and their various institutional partners, but now available to retail buyers through the magic of blockchain and its distribution capabilities, right? So what specifically do we do differently? Number one is this AI-powered market intelligence and asset selection, right? So um, most blockchain projects that play in the art space, right, they focus on the digital assets, whereas what we bring is institutional grade AI to the RWA space. So it's this combination of AI and RWA. So what does it do? AI-driven asset discovery. So we source investment grade assets across all of the categories that I mentioned, from art to watches to cars, and so on, through a global network. We have a global network of dealers, collectors, auction houses who have those assets, and so we have a way to find the best performing ones. Then there is AI powered, I already mentioned that earlier, pricing and valuation models. So how do you understand what is the current fair market value of, say, a painting, or a watch? You have to rely on a lot of sales data. We are the world's largest source of art market data right now, which is used, universally throughout the art market everywhere in the world. And so we use this data with various AI models that sit on top of it to properly price these assets really in real time, right? So you always know what a given painting costs, what a given watch costs, and so on. Right, so that's one. Two is once we know what the asset is, how to bring that asset to retail investors, and that's where real world asset technology, blockchain technology comes in. Those of you who have already done some of the, have followed us or have done through some of the fractionalization experiences with LiveArt, you know how it works. We split it into pieces which we call shards, which are on-chain kind of pieces of the asset, which are then traded in a variety of ways, right? So they're traded in the primary and the secondary market, and then there is a buyout opportunity in case the underlying asset is bought out, and then the shards get redeemed. Which is, in fact, right now we are going through one of those redemption processes for an Andy Warhol painting that we fractionalize in multiple blockchains. So that's two. And then three, and in fact, I just mentioned that, is kind of a very unique distribution mechanism, which is a multi-chain distribution mechanism. We do not just operate on one chain. We operate across multiple chains. Currently, it's 7 chains, I think: Ethereum, BNB chain, Polygon, and Linea, and a couple of others. And then you can buy those tokens on any one of those chains, which means that very diverse communities from different corners of the crypto universe are able to participate in these asset classes and the various opportunities, investment opportunities that we bring to them. So those are some of the differentiators that I'd like to highlight. There's really nothing else like it.
Thanks, Boris. And by the way, while you were explaining and telling us what is behind live art, basically we had a question from the community member, the Evelsul. I hope I
Mhm.
pronounced it correctly. So for tokenized art shades, is live art holding on to the actual physical arts? I believe you've already covered this question, so maybe
Oh,
some
well, wait, yeah,
specific.
maybe, yeah, maybe not directly. So I'd love to do it
Mhm,
again, or do it more in a more expansive way. So uh, we use really the best practices from the industry, right? So in the art industry for artworks, and other industries for watches, cars, whatever the other asset classes might be. So specifically for art, as I mentioned in the beginning, I spent a bunch of years at the auction houses, which are the biggest art businesses in the world, and the way that they do it is the way that we do it, which is basically you act as a custodian of the artwork, and the actual asset is stored in very fancy storage facilities that are specifically designed for artworks with all the fire protection and so on. They're insured, and then they sit there with that custodian until such time that there is a buyout event, in which case they're sent to the buyer, and then the shards are redeemed. So that's how the process works. It is probably, it maybe sounds more difficult than it is. It really, it's a matter of using best practices for storing, moving, logistics part, and ensuring the asset, which are, as I said, there are $70 billion worth of art transactions that happen every year in the world. So it's kind of a well-trodden path how to make sure that this asset is secure and safe.
Thanks, Boris. I think we covered the question perfectly. Um, Although the same member asked the second one, how to verify that live art actually owns the mentioned physical art, but I think you just covered that. Like you just basically nailed it right now. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Oh, yeah, I should also mention a couple of other things. So when the asset is acquired, right, and then the community buys it, but when it's acquired, we also check
Mhm.
provenance, authenticity, and all of the things that people in the art business normally would check.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for elaboration on that. And moving about, like talking about art fi in general, I also want to know like your opinion. What do you think? Like how do you think that art fi as the field is more I would say the future and the innovation, like moving to the future innovation, or it's moving more to the hype? What's your
Right.
opinion on?
Well, I think that we all love crypto, uh, and we all want to have and see billions of people entering crypto. Right now, we're not quite at a billion. So we want as many as possible. And for that, we need to have real world use cases for crypto. There are a lot of use cases that, in my opinion, are not real. They're just like frothy. But there are some that are real. Money is real, so DeFi is real. It's just legitimately a better way to move money around than the traditional finance system, and so that's why DeFi is so popular within crypto. Makes perfect sense. Digital property is real. So, in the past, digitally, you could not really own property because everything was infinitely copyable. Now, there is the opportunity to have unique digital objects, again, through the magic of blockchain. So that opens up a whole bunch of real use cases. I think that RWA is in that category, right? It is real. Why is it real? Because there are some things that are very difficult to own, trade in the real world, right? There's a big bulky things like real estate, like art, like all the things that I mentioned earlier. So as a result, they're not accessible to smaller investors or smaller owners. They're only accessible to people who can afford to buy, to store, to take care of that very expensive and very exclusive item. So you need some kind of a way to tokenize them, to fractionalize them, to distribute them very, very widely, globally, everywhere. And that opens up the liquidity for that asset class, which otherwise is locked in, right? Because it's too expensive to move and trade. And so that is value, because without that, the liquidity is non-existent. With that, liquidity exists. And once liquidity exists, you have, all the trading and you have all sorts of financial innovations that can happen on top of it, as well as additional use cases for owning kind of digitized versions of these different asset classes. So it's actually transformational, right? This is something that could not be done before and now can be done, and therefore it's a real use case. So I don't think it's hype. I think more and more of that of RWA is going to happen, especially in conjunction with AI, that drives people to the right asset classes at the right prices. We are certainly seeing that in the financial industry with tokenization and fractionalization of financial assets, and the same is true in the alternative asset market, so that all of these big, bulky, but very valuable and high performing from the financial perspective asset classes like art, like cars, like real estate are going to go on chain, uh, get split into little pieces, which we call shards, and then have be traded with high liquidity. So I think it's for sure here to stay because it opens up a new market, right, and makes the asset that was not liquid, it makes it liquid and accessible.
Exactly. And I believe that with the shards, you can even give them to your family members and make it as the legacy for the future, right? Like, when
Yeah, no, exactly. See, our goal is to, for most of these assets, sometimes some of these assets are called passion assets, right? So for many of those assets, it's not just the financial interest, it's also kind of the interest of owning them and perhaps passing them from generation to generation and so on. So we create additional utilities in addition to the financial utility, which is those assets appreciating, and you can benefit from, some secondary fees from trading and increased liquidity and all that stuff. But in addition to the financial utility, there are also utilities related to the asset itself, right? To owning the asset, to, enjoying some community that is into the same say, artist or even the same exact painting, right? If the painting gets fractionalized. And so there are, those of you who have participated in some of our previous projects in the space know how we do it, right? There are all sorts of utilities that holders of these shards get in addition to the financial appreciation of the underlying asset.
Thanks, Boris, for clarifying that. And we also have one more question from the community. Can you please provide details about LiveArt's corporate structure? Specifically, is LiveArt officially registered as a company, and in which jurisdiction is it incorporated?
Sure. So LiveArt is a Hong Kong holding company with a Swiss token issuing subsidiary. So for those of you who are investing into or are contemplating buying and any of the tokens in the future when we have a TGE or investing in the current community round, you are dealing with a Swiss company. So we have all of the necessary documents from the Swiss regulators and so on. So it's very much a real company in a very much a respected jurisdiction that is under the supervision of very respected regulatory authorities.
Thanks, Boris. Like a lot of questions from the community today. So, the one from Kendrick, as we explore the intersection of art and technology, how does LiveArt ensure the security and auth authentically of artworks during tokenization?
Yeah, I feel like I answered that earlier, but let me double down. And so, security and authenticity are slightly two different aspects of the same thing, which is what you want to make sure that the shards that you're buying actually are digital pieces of something real and valuable. So, for authenticity, we use, as I said, all of the same methods and uh, in some cases technologies that all of the big auction houses use, right, to move billions of dollars of art around the world every day or every month, I guess. Well, it's 70 billion per year, so I guess it's a little bit more than a billion per week. Uh, so that's there is a litany of choices. There is a provenance research, right? There is the KYC and KYB on all of the sellers, so that you understand where the art is coming from. There are some technologies, authenticities, and it needs to be ascertained. There are foundations. If the artist is no longer living, if the artist is living, then the artist obviously authenticates it him or herself. If the artist is not living, then it's the foundation of that artist who does that job. So all of that stuff, all of that infrastructure already exists in order to make sure that the item itself is authentic, right? So that's number one. As for security, I mentioned that in the beginning, right? It's all about using the same infrastructure, the same vendors, the same custodians that all of the big respected businesses in the art world use, which basically there are three types, or three categories that you would need, which is a place where you store it, logistics providers, which is how you move it in and out of that storage facility, and insurance. So those are the three. And as long as you have those three in good order, then the asset is safe.
Thanks, Boris. And the next question is from Ulrich. Beyond the current market, what plans does LiveArt have for expanding into new markets and demographic regions? This could significantly impact the platform's global reach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, two questions, right? The geographic region and geographic expansion and new business expansion. So let me tackle them one at a time. So there's expansion in new markets. Number one, uh, it's expansion into new asset classes, right? So we started with art, and we're expanding into other luxury assets, like I mentioned, watches, wine, liquor, and so on, classic cars. So that's one avenue of expansion. The other avenue of expansion is on the distribution side. So I already mentioned that we do distribution or do sales through different partners, in particular different blockchains. So you can buy these shards, right, on different blockchains, currently 6, soon to be more. And that's very important, because right now the crypto market is fairly fragmented. Different people like different chains, and they sort of do their business on those chains. So you want to make sure that these shards are available wherever our customers are. So wherever they use crypto, wherever they engage in crypto activities, they can buy these shards. So that's another category or another dimension of our business expansion. And then, of course, there is a geographical expansion. So uh, we're already global, right? We were sort of global from the beginning, and we're constantly open up new markets. We've been doing that strategically. Even if you look at our cap table and the investors who are involved in LiveArt, you will see that many of them come from different countries, and that's not an accident, right? So we have a lot of investors some investors from Europe, we have some investors from Vietnam, from Indonesia, from India, from Korea, from Japan, from China, from Taiwan, from Hong Kong, from Singapore. So there is a reason for it. We want to make sure that we have communities that we access both through our backers and through our partners in all of the major markets where our customers are likely to be located. So that's another way of kind of thinking about the geographical expansion. Really starting, I would say, a year and a half ago, we started putting out all of our sales and press releases in 5 or 6 different languages, right? So that we cover all of those geographical territories in a way that is easiest for users and customers in those places to digest. So those are the 3 things that I would highlight, right? Geographical expansion, asset class expansion, and distribution expansion through our partners, in particular blockchains.
Thanks, Boris. And by the way, talking about the partners, we have also a question regarding this part. So, following recent trends, what partners does LiveArt plan to establish in the near future to further enhance its offerings to reach?
Yeah, we currently announce, if you follow our Twitter, which I highly suggest you do it at LiveArtX, you will see that we announce 3 or 4 partners every week. So we are very, very active with our partnership activities. And so if you look at the categories of partners, so the first category is what I already mentioned, and that's blockchains, right? So we actively partner with blockchains, with their communities. We do projects with different blockchains. We've generated hundreds of thousands of, in some cases, millions of users for some of these blockchains and vice versa, right? So we sort of exchange user bases, which is the whole point of partnering. So that's one. Blockchains, just generally multi-chain expansion partners. The second category of partners is wallets, really for the same reasons, right? So we partner with different centralized exchange infrastructures and their Web3 components. In many cases, these are wallets. So many of the most highly used wallets are partners of ours, which means that the users of those wallets get access to our products. And of course, we get more users, right? So that's number 2. 3, there are institutional and traditional finance adoption partners. So we want to bring the next billion users to blockchain, like many people do. And our particular way of doing it in our particular segment is to partner with, the traditional kind of nexus points for this asset class. So the private banks, family offices, hedge funds, alternative investment firms, those kinds of guys who have Web2 users for this asset class and now are able to offer, the same investment opportunities to the next tier of clients who perhaps do not have millions of dollars to buy a famous painting, but have a few $1,000s to diversify their portfolio into these asset classes. So that's another category of partner. And of course, there are DeFi and Web3 partnerships. We have lots of those, and we'll continue to build them, like different kinds of marketplaces. In the future, as we get more and more DeFi products that will be derivative products constructed on top of our shards, there will be additional DeFi partnerships. And then last but not least, lately, we have been doing a lot of partnering in the AI space. So with different AI platforms, AI agent platforms, really to make our data sources and our AI agents available to the wider community so that people can construct or orchestrate agents across different vendors to build their portfolios. And of course, we would be responsible for the part of your portfolio that has to do with alternative assets, right? But somebody else's agent could be advising on meme coins, somebody else's agent could be advising on altcoins and so on. But putting all of those agents together, you can have a well-rounded portfolio that you can monitor over time so that you get all the latest alerts when Pepe goes up or down, or Warhol goes up or down, or Banksy goes up or down. Doesn't matter what the asset is, you can include it into your portfolio as long as it's on chain.
Thanks, Boris. And by the way, talking about the AI agents, while we touched this specific area, I wanted to ask that during the Twitter space, you mentioned that right now you are working on the AI agent for LiveArt, right?
Mhm.
And you mentioned that you are about to launch it this week. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. I think tomorrow is when it's getting launched.
Ooh.
But tomorrow is Friday, so it has to be. It's this week. No, absolutely. So definitely kind of watch out Twitter. There will be a big announcement. And I think it'll be pretty cool. So it's this, it primarily, this AI agent will go through multiple generations, multiple releases. The first release focuses on AI-driven asset discovery and selection. So it scans global, art and luxury markets in real time. It identifies high value investment grade assets. It gives you all of the background on those assets, historical performance data, demand trends, AI-based valuation model that is brought to bear so that you understand how much those assets cost, and then you can make the decision on what you want to do. In the future, there will be a trading extension of that AI agent that will help you to actually trade, in particular in the secondary market when you have lots and lots of these shards distributed across the crypto universe, and it will help you to make the trading decisions, right, and give you real-time trading signals on across these alternative asset classes on which artist is going up and down or sideways, which artist released new work, which artist just had an outstanding sale at some auction somewhere, somewhere in the world. So we monitor all of that in real time, and so bring you the trading signals or the signals that can be used for a trader to make decisions whether or not to buy, sell, or in the future also invest in various derivative instruments.
Thanks, Boris. And by the way, touching also like the AI narrative, like right now, you know that on the market, AI narrative and AI agents is everything. You're hearing it out loud everywhere. Like everyone is talking about AI agents, AI-driven solutions. And within the live art, I just want to know, are you planning to make it as the one of the main core narratives for live art, or you're like separating that into the tool that can help you while exploring the journey on live art, basically?
Hmm. Well, right. As I mentioned in the beginning, we started with AI, right? It's like AI was at the foundation of LiveArt. Our first website was called liveart.ai. What it did was it gave you um, uh, uh, real time mark to market current market values of any artwork or any artist that has ever sold. I think we covered, we still do, 350,000 artists, right? So it's been with us from the start. I think that the new angle on this narrative is not just AI, but AI agent, right? Which is something that can all go and do things for you. And then we find it very, very useful and integral to our story. Why? Because we're essentially publishing, well, currently, you know, tens of artworks kind of in a given period and turning them into these tradable shards. Eventually, it will be thousands. So there will be this universe, like imagine $1 billion worth of on-chain, tokenized, fractionalized artworks. How do you make sense of that, right? It becomes a very large and very diverse kind of universe of alternative assets, artworks, and could be cars, watches, and so on. How do you make investment decisions within this asset class that is not familiar to most people? Well, you have to have AI. And fortunately, because we're sitting on a mountain of data precisely about those assets, AI has a lot to chew on. And so it can give meaningful recommendations plus the various real time transactions that are happening in anywhere in the world within this asset class that we track, plus market sentiment that is derived from crypto Twitter and various other online sources, right? So all of that put together allows you to actually make sense of that base of that sea of alternative asset class shards, right? So basically, no more guesswork, right? This AI agent that analyzes this massive amount of real world data about these asset classes and ensures that the investment decisions are well informed. So I think it's integral. I think it's necessary, right? When you introduce a new asset class, you have to have good data. And we've had good data from the start. As I said, it was our first product 3 years ago when we started LiveArt. What is new now is that this data can become more actionable through AI agents. It can actually not just be there available for you to research, but it can give you actionable advice and in the future also act on your behalf. So I think it's super important across all of the financial applications, right, in traditional finance as well as in the crypto finance. And this particular segment that we represent, which is alternative asset classes on chain, is no exception.
Thanks, Boris. And by the way, while we also touched the AI and trends and everything, I wanted to ask like one thing from me before moving to the community questions because they're like just writing and writing a lot of information. I want to ask, what's your opinion on the affection? Let's say, yeah, how will the new American the new American president will affect the crypto and art fi with AI, AI and art fi field specifically? What's your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Well, the general answer first. Art Fi is an interesting question. I got to think about that. But the general question is that it will definitely be a positive effect. I think I mentioned on Twitter Space the other day that I've been a long-time fan of David Sachs, right? This is a call-in podcast and from other venues. But and now he's the AI czar and crypto czar. I think both czars on in the Trump administration. So I think that he will. I mean, I know that he will do whatever he needs to do in order to make sure that U.S. Becomes crypto friendly, which all of us know it hasn't been right until now, and probably uh, you know kind of limiting the overall market opportunity as a result. So it's a huge market, and making this market crypto friendly, I think, is going to make a huge difference. This is one of those proverbial uh, tides that is going to for sure lift all boats. So from that perspective, it's definitely great. And then greater clarity on the regulation, great, and therefore greater institutional adoption, and therefore greater demand from the retail market. All of that will follow as a result of this just um, you know, more favorable geopolitical and political stance that the US government is likely to take with respect to crypto. So all of that is fantastic. Now, specifically on ArtFi, I think it's just the case of the tide lifting all boats. And it's one of the boats. I think it's one of the bigger ones. I think RWA is one of the, as I mentioned in the very beginning, one of the key use cases, like real use cases, like use cases with a staying power for crypto. And all this clarity around the regulation is going to do wonders for its long-term health, right? It's very important to know from the regulatory perspective what's a security, what is not, right? What kind of trading is allowed and not, what kind of disclosures you have to make. So all of that stuff is super important for RWA, and I think that just, increased acceptance and regulatory clarity is going to be very, very beneficial for it.
Oh, I didn't unmute myself. Thanks. Thanks, Boris. It's really insightful. And yeah, the community is nagging that they will not write more questions before we answer the ones that have already been posted. So let me just read it out loud.
Sure.
So we've talked about the plans on the market, right? We talked about, yeah, during discussion about art tokenization, it's often mentioned that it benefits collectors and artists. What are the specific advantages that live art offers through these processes?
For collectors and artists.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me start with artists first. The artists, or in the case when artist is no longer alive, that would be their foundations or whoever manages their interests. From their perspective, opening up the market, opening up, basically creating more demand is always good for any market, including any art. You can think of an artist as a market, right? Every artist, as I mentioned earlier, some artists are multi-billion-dollar markets. Like Andy Warhol is a multi-billion-dollar market. Basquiat, same. Banksy is pretty big, right? So all of those artists are markets, and as in any market, if the artist is dead, then the supplies will obviously limited. The artist is going to create more work. And if the demand increases, the prices will go up, which is great for any market, including the market for that artist. So that's what's in it for the artist. Expansion of demand, be that from new collectors who like the artist's works, or from new financial investors who like that artist's art as an asset class, or frankly from speculators who just want to jump on the nearest trend of the next trend if the artist seems to be hot. So whatever the source of that demand is, be that some high-minded source because people love the art, or much more mercantile source, right? Because people just want to make money. Whatever the source is, it is an increase in demand. Increase in demand means increase in the price, assuming that the supply is fixed, right? So that's what's in it for the artist. Now, what's in it for the collector, or basically generally the buyer of fractionalized art? We try very hard to create multiple utilities for the holders, right? For the holders of these shards. One of the utilities is obviously financial, right? So that much is clear. But the question is, what other utilities are there? So what we try to do is we try to create communities, and you will see much more of that with the next generation of our AI agent, actually. There will be entire communities around specific artists and maybe even artworks if the artwork is particularly hefty, where you'll be able to derive benefits from that community. In addition, there will be all sorts of rewards, different tiered memberships that entitle you to various benefits, all kind of around each individual artist that we introduce. So what we call it internally is experience of ownership, right? So even if you don't own the entire artwork, our goal is to bring this experience of ownership to every shard holders as much as possible, right? Even if you cannot put it on the wall, but we still want you to belong to the community of users, of community of collectors who collectively own that artwork. And that leads to all sorts of utilities that, some of you who have already participated in our previous drops have probably experienced, and will continue introducing new ones. I think
Thanks.
what's important is that it's a mix, right? Owning a piece of passion asset is a mix of a financial utility and a non-financial set of non-financial utilities. And we take it very seriously to develop both, not just the financial utility, but also this experience of ownership of something important.
Thanks, Boris. And I would like to mention that community members are, they're highlighting that you are really charismatic person, by the way. They just wrote it within the comments. And moving to the next question. So naturally, like the one from Westeron, naturally retail investors are interested in opportunities for growth. What investment opportunities and income generation does LiveArt offer to its users?
Great question. So let me start by saying that the underlying assets that we're talking about, like just take art as an example, especially blue chip art, is one of the best performing alternative asset classes, for the last 30 years, probably more, but for the last 30 years that we have data for. It's outperformed pretty much everything else. And so, but as I mentioned earlier, it was not accessible to anybody but the most well-to-do investors. So now that it's accessible to all right, well, that's one financial benefit. And that's, every time that we do a shard, every time we do tokenization, fractionalization, you get access to that even today. In the future, when the secondary market for these shards is going to become more and more active, there will be an additional income generation opportunity from that liquidity, right? So right now, you can think like yesterday, before tokenization, fractionalization, this market is not liquid at all. You have to buy like a Picasso for $3 million for the transaction to take place. So now, that's today, with LiveArt shards, that market is more liquid. So now you can buy little pieces, and so then you can trade them. So what we are going to introduce next is take, or once we have some critical number of shards extant right out there, so like 50 million or $100 million AUM, we are going to start opening up secondary market trading kind of DeFi style. Imagine a DEX that trades these shards all the time with added liquidity that we have a mechanism for introducing into the market. So now the frequency of that trading is going to be, on par with the frequency of other trading of other crypto assets, which will generate trading fees, and those fees could be an additional source of income and rewards through, all sorts of mechanisms that you know and love from DeFi, from staking to, various redistributions of trading profits to shard holders, etc. Right? So that's the next step in the future. And then, obviously we're thinking slightly ahead. I'm not going to talk much about what the next step might be, but it will be that will generate yet another layer of financial reward opportunities. It also has to do with DeFi, various derivative instruments that we're going to put on top of it. Like right now, basically all the shards are spot trading product, right? You buy and sell them as they are, but imagine that you can short an artist, or you can follow an index, or you cannot follow, or you can have a fund of different artists who belong to the same movement, which you think is going to be popular in the next, year or month or second. So you can do you will be able to do all of those things as well. So that's how I would describe the various financially rewarding opportunities. There is something that's available today, and then as we develop the platform, more and more will be introduced in the future.
Thanks, Boris. And in addition to this, I also have a question regarding the shards. So, are they being tokenized into shards like the art pieces, or are they being auctioned off in a more traditional manner, similar to the other auction platforms? I think
Mhm.
you've touched that already, though I think we need to elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah. No, I actually didn't say that, didn't talk about that specifically, but it's a very, very good question because there are different ways of selling, right? Those two that you mentioned and more. So let me talk a little bit about it. As I mentioned again in the beginning, I spent a lot of time in the world's biggest IRL auction, which is Christie's, which is where one of my previous companies, I sold to Christie's, and I spent a bunch of time there. So I know firsthand how these high value auctions are done, and how you can basically sell $100 million asset, right, to a set of individuals. So that's one edge of the one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is what online auction platforms like eBay and others are doing, right? And then there are ways, and they do that for unique items. So our situation is unlike, either of these, because we are selling multiples, right? So shards, like a given painting could be split into 100,000 shards, and those shards need to be sold at the best possible price to the investors. Usually we do that in various waves like whitelist and so on. So there are different discounts at different levels to really optimize the sellout price for the asset, and then for all of the participants depending on the appetite for taking risks if they're early with rewards, for taking fewer risks when the asset is almost sold out, but with fewer rewards. So, what are the various ways of doing those sellouts? There are fixed price with discounts, which is what I just described. Historically, most of the time, this is what we used. The second one is auction. So there are different kinds of auctions, right? Dutch auctions, English auctions, all sorts of other different kinds of auctions, especially for multiple items, for, like an edition, which is the case here. And then the third one is kind of a random allocation with a subsequent kind of like, in crypto, that would be like a magic box, right? With a subsequent trading, secondary market trading for people to get the pieces that they want. And I think that's very important. And this is where this financial utility connects to the collecting utility. In our world, people, not all shards are created equal. Some shards carry more collectible quality, right? For instance, the Superman by Andy Warhol that we did recently, if you have the fist of the Superman or the face of the Superman, well, that's more interesting and more valuable than if you have the background of the Superman, which is just black, right? And so what people do, and I think we'll do even more in the future as we open up various secondary market trading opportunities, they will start trading with themselves, these random allocations that they got in the primary sale to achieve a more collectible collection of shards, which then we will reward, right? So if you collect the fist of the Superman, we'll give you some kind of an NFT or something, some digital collectible that commemorates it, which will have its own collectible value in addition and on top of the shard and the value of its underlying asset. So there are all sorts of ideas there, as you can see, for how these shards are sold. Historically, we've done it primarily in the fixed price with discounts for different tiers, but in the future, we'll start trying other ways as well. And I'm particularly excited about secondary market and how it's going to start differentiating among the different kinds of shards to really take into account what is actually on the painting and which pieces of it, or whatever the asset we are selling, and whatever the pieces of that are more important than others.
Thanks, Boris. And we talked a lot about the trends. We talked about the industry, talked about live art as the project and the company. And we didn't touch mostly one of the most important parts is the art token. I would love to highlight a bit there. So, from the user perspective, what are the main I know that we touched it already within the Twitter space, but I want to to remind the community what's the main perspectives and what's the main, I would say, benefits for holders of the art token, basically. So as the retail investor, what's the reason, except for supporting the company, of course, and the project and the idea, what's the other reasons to hold the token?
Right. Or more generally, kind of what are the utilities of the token? I will, of course, answer this question, but I also want to make sure that everybody goes to our website and looks at our white paper or light paper that outlines that in some detail, which I think is, very important. So there are different ways to earn and spend the art token. So for the earning, many of you have already been doing it by participating in the art in our live art universe that gives you points instead of the tokens that at TGE are going to be exchanged for tokens. We're actually preparing the airdrop details right now, as I mentioned on our Twitter space the other day, and it's going to be announced within the next couple of weeks, obviously pre-TG, so you will see how those mechanisms work and how the staking rewards work and so on, right? So that's something to look forward to as an aside. But earning the art tokens, you will be able to do by participating in our fractional RWA sales, by staking tokens, of course, as usual for any DeFi project. In the future, in the secondary market, when we have DEX that does the trading by participating in liquidity provision on LiveArt DEX, so that's in the future. For contributing data to the LiveArt AI agent, so we are going to open up our data source, which is currently proprietary, and make it more of an Oracle kind of thing, so that people can validate data that we publish, and that way it can be more trusted and not just proprietary, but actually validated by the users, and you will be earning the art token for those validations. So those are some of the ways to earn. Now, as far as spending, You can spend it. You will be able to use the token to purchase the actual fractions, right? The actual fraction RWAs. When we have the DEX and the corresponding chain, you will be able to use the token to pay the gas fees. You will be able to use the token when you participate in those, we call them initial asset offerings, which is when we sell the asset for the first time. You will be able to pay entirely or partly for those assets or partially in the token. And those are the main ways. There are some kind of secondary ways for uh, allocating or staking the token to join different tiers of our reward programs and stuff like that. But the main use cases is what I outlined.
Thank you, Boris. And I would love to remind our community that right now we're having the last day of the smart whitelisting for ARC token community round, basically. And tomorrow, the community round will be announced, and you guys, you will be able to support. You will be able to support live art with with a lot of energy and love you're sharing within the chat.
Yeah.
Now, I think we kind of need to ramp up already. Though I would love to say from my side, thank you, Boris, for joining us today. It was really, really insightful AMA. Honestly, I've heard a lot of interesting stuff, especially for the, I would say the core mechanics behind and the core kitchen. Yeah, like I love to know what's hiding back within the kitchen, and it's really insightful and really interesting for me. And yeah, thank you, community, for joining today and asking so really nice questions. It's hard within the last days, I believe it's hard to find really decent questions from the community, to be honest.
These are great questions. Some of the questions have never been asked before, so that's always cool.
Yeah, Boris, heading mic to you, like your words to the community.
Mm. Well, first of all, thank you, especially for those of you who have already engaged with us in the past. Our community is growing. We now have 13 million connected wallets. We have about 50,000 daily transactions. So it's growing and it's getting up there in the numbers. And as I said, we continue to expand it both geographically and within and across the various other dimensions that I mentioned earlier. Now, as far as the project, I'm really excited about it. It's like it's my fifth company, so it's not the first time I'm doing it, but this one feels different. It feels like it's not just another blockchain project. We're really building the financial infrastructure for the next generation of wealth creation. It's those assets that really were the cornerstone for wealth creation for the many of the rich and famous who are always buying art and expensive luxury items. And suddenly, they're open to everybody, to retail investors through the magic of blockchain and the AI-based guidance and price formation. So that's amazing. And so really, uh, we're not really here to follow the trends. We're defining the future of AI guided RWA and ArtFi. We're not just making these assets tradable, we're making them intelligent, liquid, accessible. I mentioned this ownership utility in addition to the financial utility. It's very important to us. And we're not just building a platform, we're building a movement. We're building a community that is going to really be into this these asset classes which in the past were not accessible to them. And we want to make sure that, they're perceived not just as a financial instrument, but also as a collectible, as something to engage with, to be passionate about. And really, that's what the company is about, to merge that, to bring these previously inaccessible asset classes to blockchain and retail investors as kind of a composite financial and passion collectible instrument. So really excited about what we're doing. We're obviously just getting started, even though we already have lots of users and lots of released products. But what I have on the drawing board for the future is just as exciting. So thank you, and please participate in the AlphaMind sale. And then the next stop after that for us is going to be the TG.
Thank you, Boris, and thank you, community. So, yeah, guys, thanks again once more. Don't forget to follow LiveArt social medias, especially Twitter, because they're having a lot of really bullish information there. And tomorrow, hopefully, we'll see the announcement of the AI agent launching. I'm excited, to be honest. Like, I want to see that and touch it already because I'm a huge fan on the RWA and I'm really bullish on AI and I really want to touch and see what's waiting for me there. Thanks guys and have a great day and thanks again for participating and see you next time.
Thank you.